Hi everyone, it's Elizabeth here. So this is the relationship video number 3, which is in regards to divorce is when the learning process begins. In the summertime, a friend of mine had a party. She had a baby, so we all got to get together to meet her newborn son. And, at this party, I started talking to a few people. There was a married couple there. Some people asked if I was dating anybody, and I said no, but I'm like, I kind of got, the dating thing is so horrific. It was so bad. I met some people. It was a very short-lived connection because a few of them forgot to tell me they had a girlfriend, which is just really common in the Northwest. To have open relationships and marriages and things like that, which is completely the opposite of what I believe in, or at least I want in my own life. So, anyways, I had a conversation with a couple. They were married, and the guy was actually on his second marriage. And he told me, he said, divorce is the time when the learning process begins. And as he said that, it really clicked in my brain because I thought, well, my God, yes. As I've explained in other videos, I remember sitting in my therapist's office about a month into my separation in 2017 in tears, but also saying like, oh my God, I think I had to experience this, not only in terms of my own personal and spiritual growth and maturity, but in some form of like spiritual development as well. Because it's really easy to get comfortable in relationships, but also to kind of disregard your partner's feelings. And I've seen this throughout my life of my friends or some of my clients. I think a lot of like men have done damage to women for a very, very long time. And I think now we're having this like pendulum swing where you see a lot of women who are very much damaging men, and there's this whole debate between like the alpha and the beta male. And now we see that masculinity is kind of going down the tubes, but also femininity as well. So what he said rang very true to me because I not only understood things about myself and my personality more, and things like my lack of actions or my lack of physical affection, how it actually made somebody feel very empty and hollow inside. I understood things from various angles, but I also started to understand men a little bit better and also men's emotions and feelings. I think men are a lot of them are taught to be very strong and confident externally, but internally there's still that little boy or that little child inside that is very emotional and sensitive. And I think sometimes women emotionally can sometimes rebound a little quicker than men due to the fact that we are able to handle our emotions a little bit better. And this is very dependent upon if you are the one leaving your situation or if you've been the one left behind. I really recommend going through a myriad of different therapies and trainings or just different activities to kind of help rediscover yourself and rediscover things about life and love. But I do think divorce is when the learning lessons begin because you start to see things from a completely different point of view and perception. I remember maybe a few weeks after my ex-husband moved out, I had an emotional meltdown in my kitchen because I couldn't open up a jar of pasta sauce. And whenever that happened, it's like, I'd be like, oh, hey, honey, can you please open this for me? Because I think a lot of times women, we look to men for their strength. And I realized for being in a relationship for almost 10 years, like how dependent I was on a guy. And I'm a really independent woman, but there are certain things like that that you just depend upon them. Silly me didn't even get an oil change in the car for about a year. It's like that stuff is just not in my brain as a woman. It's like I just kind of depend on a guy for that and or a mechanic as well. But divorce is a time when you're going to learn a lot of things, not only about yourself, why your relationship at some point succeeded, why at some point your relationship failed. And you're going to really rediscover who you are and what you want. I think it's common that you see a lot of people divorcing, the millennial generation divorcing in their 30s because they've met so young in their early and mid 20s that once they get to their 30s, they kind of crave and want something a little bit different. And that's normal, I guess, to some degree. I guess I'm the same. I met my ex-husband when I was 23. I got married at 26. He was 28 years old. So that was actually kind of the national average of when people get married. So it wasn't necessarily like we were fresh out of high school, like we were 18 and 20 years old. We both had, a decent amount of life experience that included living abroad and stuff like that. But yeah, I think through this time, you should take the time to really think, ponder, and read about life, love, and relationships. I have a very spiritual perspective on love and relationships that sometimes complements Western society and psychology, but it also contradicts that. I do believe marriage is, a Christian friend told me this, and it was like a light bulb in my brain. A marriage is a union between two souls and God. And so that union, once it gets broken, you will never go back to being the same person that you were prior to meeting that human being. And that even goes for smaller, shorter term relationships. Even if it is 6 months or a year, that human being has been a part of you for a certain length of time that helped set you on the trajectory or the path that you currently are on. Obviously, hopefully they're opening the gateway for you to live a better and healthier life, which includes better, healthier relationships. But you will never be able to erase your past, and you will never be able to just go back to being who you were before you met the human being, because somehow your ex-husband or your ex-wife influenced you to become the person who you are today. Hopefully in a better way, but sometimes not always. So divorce is a time when the learning process begins, and it is a big learning process. I really recommend going to divorce support group. It depends on the severity of your divorce, whether it's kind of like a tragic love story, or maybe it's more celebratory because your relationship was really toxic and or abusive in some form of a way. But yeah, you will hear stories in divorce support group that will absolutely shock you. And obviously all that should be remained confidential when you do hear those stories, but it's important to hear and learn because it helps you process your own situation. Maybe you can empathize because a person's on the same wavelength as you, or like in my situation, I realized that my divorce was really not that bad. It was like workable, fixable, first world human being problems, such as bringing spark in, more romance and sex into your life and things like that. Like that is a fixable thing. And then you have some people whose marriages are just absolutely so broken, or they're divorcing with like 3 or 4 children. You just hear all these stories that are really tragic, but hearing their stories will help you through your learning process. And going through a divorce, like for me, it was the biggest rug that has been pulled out of from underneath my feet. And when your life in that moment, but also the future of your life changes so drastically, like a 180 or a 360 circle, you will be snapped into some form of reality. Some of it will be a little fight or flight, but you will be forced to look at yourself and look at your situation and look at your partner and realize, is this the best thing that has happened to us? So these are just some thoughts that I've had. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. But if you can, please subscribe to my channel. That would be very, very helpful. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Speak soon. Bye.